News Voice is the world's first mobile app that helps you track where your news is coming from. News Voice helps you track what corporate interests might be influencing the narratives in the news you read every day. Arm yourself against corporate media monopolies by downloading the News Voice app for free using the link right underneath this video. So now I do want to play for you just some clips of Donald Trump's Dr. Sean Conley deceiving and juking and disorienting the public over the weekend about Donald Trump's health. So on Saturday morning, Sean Conley came out with an army of doctors standing behind him to tell us everything is supposedly great, except that he didn't. This was one of the biggest disasters in crisis management. He created a crisis by coming out and obviously lying about how great everything is going. It started to get weird with Dr. Sean Conley when he was asked whether Donald Trump had been on supplemental oxygen. And Conley insisted Trump didn't need oxygen that day.
Let me try to pin you down one more time. I know you said there was no oxygen.
Yeah, I'm not. He's not on oxygen
but did he receive
today.
Did he receive any on Thursday?
And what's today? Saturday?
Saturday.
No, Thursday.
Okay, so no Thursday, no Friday, no Saturday. That's fine.
So
that was why we were confused.
Thursday, no oxygen, none at this moment. Yeah, and yesterday with the team, while we were all here, he was not on oxygen.
So he says none Thursday, none at Walter Reed Friday, and none today, which was Saturday. Now, of course, now we know Trump had oxygen Friday at the White House. Really bad lying. It was obvious that Sean Conley was lying. Sean Conley also mentioned, and this might be a case of accidentally telling the truth, Sean Conley mentioned Trump had now been, this was Saturday morning, Conley said Trump had been in treatment 72 hours. Wait a second. 72 hours from Saturday morning. That puts us Friday morning, Thursday morning, Wednesday morning. Publicly, Donald Trump supposedly didn't test positive till 1 a.m. Friday morning. He's been in treatment for 72 hours. That's weird. Take a listen.
As reported yesterday, consultation with this group, I recommended we bring the president up to Walter Reed as a precautionary measure to provide state-of-the-art monitoring and any care that he may need. Just 72 hours into the diagnosis now, the first week of COVID, and in particular days 7 to 10 are the most critical.
Later, Conley put out a statement saying, I made a mistake. I just made a mistake about how long it had been. Not very convincing for the doctor who supposedly has been involved in Trump's treatment every step of the way. Conley also said Trump had no fever for a while. Minutes later, we got a report that Trump had a fever that day. Lies, lies, lies. And when the pressure got to be too much, when it became abundantly clear that they were lying, Dr. Sean Conley came out again on Sunday and seemed very confused about how time works and what day it is, seeming to have almost issues better served for a physics lab than for a medical press conference. How does time work? Does it go forward or backwards? Only raising more questions about the accuracy of the story that we are getting. Here is Conley being asked about his vague admission that Trump did have some breathing problems, but everything is fine nonetheless.
Mr. Conley, you said that there were 2 instances where he had drops in oxygen. Can you walk us through the second one? And also, I've got a question for the lung specialist afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Yesterday, there was another episode where he dropped down about 93%. He doesn't ever feel short of breath. We watched it, and it returned back up. As I said, we evaluate all of these, and given the timeline where he is in the course of illness, we are trying to maximize everything that we could do for him, and we debated whether we'd even start it, the dexamethasone, and we decided that in this case, the potential benefits early on the course probably outweighed any risks at this time.
Did you give him a second round of supplemental oxygen yesterday?
I'd have to check with the nursing staff. I don't think that if he did, it was very, very limited. But he's not on oxygen, and the only oxygen that I ordered or that we provided was that Friday morning initially.
And about what time was that yesterday?
Yesterday. What was yesterday?
You said the second instance.
Second incidence? Oh, it was over the course of the day. Yeah, yesterday morning.
Yesterday? What? Oh, yeah, yesterday. It was during the course of the day. Yesterday morning. Well, hold on. Was it in the morning or was it throughout the day? What are you talking about? Even Conley himself sounds confused, like he's obviously lying, like he's been told to downplay, but he also seems confused about the facts. In the next moment I'm going to play for you, Conley is called out for saying Trump's doing great. And then minutes later, Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, came out and admitted to the media, it's really bad. We're not even sure Trump will make a full recovery at this point in time. Conley called out about it, and here's how he responded.
The steroids, sir, on the lung function?
Yesterday, you told us that the president was in great shape, had been in good shape and fever-free for the previous 24 hours. Minutes after your press conference, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told reporters that the president's vitals were very concerning over the past 24 hours. Simple question for the American people. Whose statements about the president's health should we believe?
So the chief and I work side by side, and I think his statement was misconstrued. What he meant was that 24 hours ago, when he and I were checking on the president, that there was that momentary episode of the high fever and that temporary drop in the saturation, which prompted us to act expediently to move him up here. Fortunately, that was really a very transient, limited episode. A couple hours later, he was back up, mild again. I'm not going to speculate what that limited episode was about so early in the course, but he's doing well.
You really get the sense that Conley is just not cut out for this lying. He's doing the lying, but he's doing it really poorly and transparently. Nobody believes this guy at this point. Check this one out. Remember from our last segment that oxygen saturation below 94 is serious COVID. That's the baseline. Conley is asked, was Trump ever saturating oxygen below 90? And Conley says, we don't have recordings of that here at the hospital. Kind of a weird response. So then he's asked, was oxygen saturation ever below 90? And Conley says it was never in the low 80s. Nobody asked about the low 80s. Another obvious lie.
Ever dipped below 90?
We don't have any recordings here of that. That's right.
On the dextromethasone, doctor? Yeah, what about here? At the White House or here, anything below 90, just to follow up on her question?
No, it was below 94%. It wasn't down into the low 80s or anything. No.
So, okay. So on the dextromethasone...
It is lie after lie. And from that, what I interpret is Trump's saturation did get to the 80s, not the low 80s. And that's really serious COVID. And then lastly, here he is explaining the previous day's absurd, rosy picture that he painted. He just says, well, I was trying to be upbeat.
Why were you so
Are there any
reluctant until
obesities? Are there
today
anything?
to disclose that the president had been administered oxygen?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I was trying to reflect the upbeat attitude that the team, the president, that his course of illness has had. I didn't want to give any information that might steer the course of illness in another direction, and in doing so, it came off that we were trying to hide something, which wasn't necessarily true.
I love that he says there. I mean, it's just every sentence, he says we weren't necessarily trying to hide something. It's almost like a Freudian use of the word necessarily. You weren't necessarily trying to hide something, but you were. What does that even mean? They lie about everything, and we have to ask why. And the answer is optics, given that there's an election in 30 days or less. I think it's 29 days at this point, 28 days, period. Has Donald Trump gotten to the point where they're going to send him back to the White House? You might know more than I've been able to tell you now, because something may have changed in the next few hours. We will follow it. We will cover it. They are very, very worried here about the impact of this on the election, and we'll talk about that after the break.